Hello everyone, my name is Moon, and today we're going to do something different. If you are here for my Twitch channel, which those of you here right now are, you can expect a little less gaming today and a different type of format. I want to focus on building my YouTube channel actually, Moonlight Mysteries. So why not blend these worlds together? This is a live stream, but I want a more formulated experience. I love gaming, but I want to explore more psychology and writing. These are my two passions. Throw Nightmind into the mix, and you can call me a happy bat. So, with that out of the way, I think it's time to kick off this video, shall we? As you can see today, understanding fear and the science behind our reactions. What is fear? Why are movies and video games so good at bringing out this primal emotion? Why am I even qualified to talk about this, you may ask? Well, I hate myself already. I attended college for 5 years. I double majored in writing and psychology. I have a bachelor's in both. And you may be asking, what can you do with a bachelor's in psychology? Well, this is about all I can do with a bachelor's in psychology, but I'm making the best of it. I had a grand old time. I'm going to put my knowledge to use. Let's start off with like the first warning of this video. I made this presentation this afternoon, like 6 hours ago, so expect a bit of a beginner's course. We won't be getting into the nitty-gritty of everything, but my goal is for you to fly away with a bit more knowledge today, and probably 5 or 12 more bat puns because it's kind of on brand. Let's start by triggering our fear response, shall we?
Jesse! Oh my god! Jesse!
With that being said, spooky, right? A little messed up. Nothing is fun about that. Makes you off-putting. It's a little off-putting, isn't it? It's nothing that makes you feel comfortable. Kind of makes you itch in the wrong way, wouldn't you say? And I also like this comment. What can you do with a bachelor's in anything anymore? That is the truth. Spooky, right? I wanted to start off this video with 2 little jump scares, all right? Nothing too exciting. I'm not going to be building too much fear today, but I just wanted to set the mood, shall we? Totally forgot that that second clip got a little bit brutal there, but it is what it is. Who doesn't love a little bit of gore? You may not have screamed, you may not have jumped, but if you felt your heart quicken, your attention become hyper-focused on the video, then you got a taste of fear. There are different levels to fear. Being jump scared versus being afraid for your life for like an extended period of time work a bit differently in the brain, but they all have the same nature at their core. So I guess, what is fear? So fear is an emotion that alerts us to danger. It helps ensure our survival by enabling like quick reactions. These can even happen before you can't control them, which is pretty cool. In some instances, your body moves without telling it to. Almost kind of like a spider sense in that way. There's a reason why you jump when you get scared. Your body hit the eject button and told you to GTF out of there. It's not something that was in your control. You jumped, your body reacted almost like something else was controlling it. And in a way, there was something else controlling it. It does this by like activating certain parts of your brain, making this little jump happen, most of which are at the deepest, most central part of your brain, closest to your brainstem. This is because it allows for the fastest response from the rest of your body. Rather than having to send a signal through like more wire work in the brain, it works more like a shortcut. Instead of having to go through all the different parts of your brain, it just goes boom, right from the amygdala and the other parts of the brain we're going to talk about, right to the brainstem. A lot less mileage to take on. Maybe the oldest complex brain response in the animal world. Exactly. I'm so glad. Yes, you caught on to that. So the reason for this, it's at the most like central part of the brain. I'll be showing a little graph in a second. Is because it's kind of the They call it the reptile brain. It is one of the first parts of the brain that was formed, and everything on top of that is, great to have, but one could argue not as essential. Like a cockroach, for example, doesn't have as big of a brain as us, but they do have certain parts of a brain. So, for example, Miss Gooseberry here, this beautiful, beautiful lady, she's from the Outlast trials. She can probably set off some triggers in your brain. It's dark in the photo. She's big. She's pretty as caca to a fly, and she looks like she's gonna kill us. But how was this fear response triggered exactly? Dude, she's freaky as well. If you haven't seen Outlast Trials, she is arguably one of the most messed up characters in that whole game. Here we go. So this is the little graph I was talking about. For today's topic, we're mainly going to be focusing on the amygdala right here. We got the prefrontal cortex, and then we got the hippocampus, which is up here. So everything that's kind of at the center part of the brain is kind of not the most important, but kind of the most important. You see this amygdala, for example, right next to the brainstem, the hypothalamus, right next to the brainstem. This is our reptile brain. This is where everything else you can kind of live without for at least a little bit, but this part is absolutely essential to life. Let's see. So this is the basic layout of the brain. We've got the amygdala, the hippocampus, and the prefrontal cortex. All right. So first, let's start off with the threat. This could be a visible threat or an auditory threat. Imagine, for example, a bear chasing after you, or a loud bang, like thunder that you weren't expecting. Your eyes perceive the threat, which sends the visual info from your eyes to your thalamus, which processes your vision before you're even conscious of what you're seeing. So a lot of the time, especially in responding to fear, before you even recognize what you're seeing consciously, your brain is already trying to do that for you. This then sends info to your visual cortex, which is a conscious recognition of, oh shit, that's a bear. So now you know, oh, this is a bear, which sends info to your amygdala, which creates the jump start of fear, which then sends signals and triggers feedback from your muscles and organs to conduct the full fear response. So first, your brain has to identify, what am I looking at? What is it? I'm afraid. What do I do now that I'm afraid? So that is the fight or flight response. Now, this isn't a A to B to C process. Multiple signals get sent out at the same time. Many things are happening all at once. A similar process happens for auditory scares, but I won't get into that just to save a little bit of time. So as these multiple signals get sent out through all the different fields, they're all kind of talking to one another at the same time before ultimately getting the same message and sending it through the body. So, ready for this? A little extra whoop. The amygdala, for example, the good old amygdala. This small almond-shaped piece of your brain is responsible for detecting and activating your emotional responses. For example, the amygdala activates whenever we see a human face with emotion. This reaction is more pronounced with anger and fear. Threat stimulus, one such as the sight of a predator, triggers a fear response in the amygdala, which activates areas involved in preparation for motor functions, which will then be put into fight or flight. This also triggers the release of stress hormones and the sympathetic nervous system, which leads us to the prefrontal cortex. Also, if you're still here listening to me ramble on, thank you so much for being here. This was a fun little project to do. So thank you. I'm hoping I'm able to provide a nice little lesson for you today. The prefrontal cortex. This part of the brain moderates the responses to fear. So instead of bolting like a deer in headlights every time we get frightened or startled, we're given a slight pause to allow for rational thinking and decision making. Imagine every time you got jump scared, you thought you were going to get KIA'd. That wouldn't work out all that well. This is what helps allow you to realize, oh, that's not a real bear chasing after me. That's just a cosplayer dressed as Freddy Fazbear. This is all because the prefrontal cortex is involved in higher level processing. Instead of just acting, it can think. Imagine seeing Miss Gooseberry in an actual asylum you were forced into. That would trigger a strong fear response. All right, she's in front of you, she's there. There's a lot less to consider. But imagine this same context, same response with the context of this just being a video game. She's there in front of you, but it allows for more curiosity and less of a life or death stake. This is because the frontal cortex and the hippocampus process all the contextual information and use they call them the inhibitory pathways to dampen the fear response from the amygdala. So that fear response is still getting sent, but it's being inhibited or dampened or quieted by this pathway. Next on the list, the hippocampus. Yes, the hippocampus. This shares a lot of jobs with the prefrontal cortex because they're having a conversation with another pretty much all the time. The hippocampus shares a lot of jobs with the prefrontal cortex. Because of this, they are having a conversation with one another almost all the time, sharing multiple forms of information. But for today's lesson, I'm focusing more on the fear memories that we develop over time. And you might be asking, what is a fear memory? Sounds pretty cool, right? So our hippocampus is responsible for forming and retrieving these memories related to fear. These memories influence how we respond to similar threats in the future. So, for example, your first ever horror movie may have terrified you because you had no context of what was going on. Everything about it was a first-time experience. You had nothing to base it on. But because you successfully survived your first horror movie, hopefully, your brain has then learned, oh, I will be okay after watching these. I'm not actually in danger. Another more useful example would probably be all the dogs are barking in your neighborhood. If these dogs are in your front yard, no, upstairs I'm going hard. So if all the dogs in your neighborhood are barking, something must be wrong. Danger is around. Well, after they do this for the third time in a week, you realize, oh, they were barking at the mailman. There's no need to be scared. That's why when you pick up a horror game, your hippocampus gives you the context that this isn't real. You've played games before. But if the game has tension and you feel yourself getting scared, why is that? It's just a game after all. You know that's not real. But why am I still scared of Silent Hill? Does it help if I say it's just all a chemical reaction? Ooh, cool, right? Crazy. Love a Prezi. Some of the main chemicals that contribute to the fight or flight response are also involved in other positive emotional states, such as happiness and excitement. Epinephrine, or also known as adrenaline, and norepinephrine prepare the body for a threat. Other chemicals like the stress hormone, cortisol, are also all involved, while the neurotransmitter glutamate stimulates the response. This is what increases your neural excitability, which amplifies stress signals throughout the nervous system rather than directly triggering the response itself. Let's see. And you also have GABA, gamma aminobutyric acid to help regulate it, which creates your calming effect. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm throwing a lot at you guys, but I want to try and keep it kind of basic with a little bit more knowledge to it. So you're not just being told obvious basic stuff. But with this said, this is why we get physical responses, all right? These physical responses to fear, knowing what our responses are to fear helps us understand how we react to fear. It helps us understand like our survival instinct as well as our emotional responses. So you have your increased heart rate, of course. This is one of the first things that happen when you're scared or frightened. This kind of prepares the body for a quick response to potential threats. With your heart going, it pumps your blood faster. It's getting more oxygen through all of the parts of your body and your brain. And it's kind of just, it's getting your body set to move, all right? Then you have rapid breathing. Delivers more oxygen to the muscles for heightened readiness. So if your heart's racing, you're probably going to have a little bit of rapid breathing to help oxygenate your blood. Get more oxygen in your blood. Guys, you should know this. I'm a nerd. And with that said, you'll notice when you're stressed, you'll get tense. So because of this tenseness, this readies your body for an immediate action, whether to fight or flee. So if you're tense, your body's ready to just jump out of the way, start running, start hitting something. That's what your tenseness is for. But, you know, if you're having an anxiety attack, for example, you might not actually be having this something that is frightening you, scaring you, or making you anxious. Your body doesn't quite know to turn off these responses. So that's why muscle tension is a big thing if you're anxious, because your body is always tense all the time. It's ready to go even if there is no immediate threat in front of you. Let me turn down the music just a little bit. Cool. Now, let's get to a more fun part. Now, why do movies trigger this? And why do we like it? Shout out Marble Hornets. Shout out Donnie Darko. Currently going through my little Marble Hornet stream, or Marble Hornets run through, and that's actually what gave me the idea for this video. Watching Marble Hornets got me. I'm on entry little 50, and it's getting spooky, guys. So that made me think, what is fear? Ooh, I learned this in college. Let's start talking to other people about it. So, some of you fellow deviants may be aware that threat and pleasure go hand in hand. As you watch horror films, your brain is doing mental gymnastics. In Marble Hornets, you have this suspense of when will the operator, Slenderman, appear? Who is going to live? Who won't? When is the next scare going to happen? And then boom, the scary part happens. You're anxious. Your neurotransmitters are firing. You don't know what's going to happen. And then suddenly, it's over. The tape ends. You've survived. Your fight or flight has ended, and you're left nervously giddy as your heart starts to calm down. What's left? Well, relief. You've survived this threat, or at least your body thinks so. So your brain's pleasure circuits are activated in response to this relief. That rush of adrenaline is still flowing through you, creating a desire to relive this thrill. You wouldn't be getting this pleasure, this relief, without fear. So this enjoyment stems from our ability to experience these powerful emotions of fear in a safe environment. If you weren't in a safe environment, you would just constantly be in that aggravated state of fear slowly lessening until it's not quite there, but you might almost always be ready for an attack or whatever it might be. Like if you're out in the wild and you're trying to survive, you're not going to get an immediate relief until you know you're saved. There is no safe room out in the wild, so you're always going to have that fear. You're never going to get that sigh of relief, such as when you're watching a movie or playing a video game. So the techniques that evoke fear, movies, they use plenty of different techniques. They have this horror experience that really taps into your primal emotions through music, editing, even camera work, acting, all of that. Theater has spent hundreds, thousands of years perfecting how to control you like a puppet. It first started with theatrical theater, the live action theater, I guess. And then you have movies, this pre-recorded stuff that really allow for more of a tweaking of allowing the director, the actors, and everybody to really push what they want you to feel. The music might get louder. The beats per minute might get faster, making your heart rate just quicken. And then suddenly your heart rate's going fast, you're breathing heavier, your palms are sweaty, and then you're scared before you know it. So one of the things I like to point out is pretty much anyone and everyone is capable of scaring somebody. So that's why I think horror is one of the most accessible genres out there, where you're capable of scaring someone. You're capable of giving someone a fright. So not everyone can, experience the love of romance. Not everyone can, has a funny bone. But just about everyone can be scared. So psychological thrillers and jump scares, for example, they do work a little bit differently. With like psychological thrillers, they build tension through atmosphere, pacing, plots, and all that stuff. It kind of draws out the fear process, whereas jump scares kind of suddenly, wham, hit you with the bat, and then there's no big payoff other than a jump. You might be left way more scared or feeling tired after a horror movie because you've been tense the whole time, rather than a jump scare. Cool. All right. Let's never mind. Let me not give it away. So, for example, how about let's talk about video games, something a little bit more relevant to you guys. So, much of what I said can be attributed to movies, media, all of that can be attributed to games and vice versa. For the most part. Little Dead Space reference for you in the corner. The biggest difference, you. You are the one who is in control. Virtual reality games have scared me the most by far. Five Nights at Freddy's didn't scare me until I was face to face with the gang. That got me. I'm not gonna lie, that was scary. Seeing a 8-foot bear not at Pride Week is very scary. Five Nights at Yeah, I like that joke. I came up with that on the spot. That wasn't in the script. Alien Isolation, don't even get me started with that game. That is what made me immune to most scares and other forms of horror content, because it was so friggin' scary. It pretty much ruined horror for me for a while, making me not be afraid of other projects. If you see my live stream, if you see me live stream any horror games, you know for a fact I'm totally not lying. Anyway, their biggest tools, video games, suspense, fear of the unknown, and anticipation. Little Rocky horror reference for you. Music, landscape, and even color palettes are all factored in and serve a purpose to make the player feel a certain way at every potential point. Stress and anxiety take the biggest spike when playing horror games. This leads to, as we talked about before, an increased heart rate, sweaty palms, and a hyper focus. Everything can be a threat, and our brains are actively scanning for danger. But we aren't all that good at recognizing threats when they are virtual. Immersion is what leads to psychological stress, thus your flight or fight response. It's not all bad though, because there is a form of catharsis for players. There's an emotional release when you finally reach that safe zone or take out the main bad guy. Things are finally safe. You can let your guard down and actually take a breather. Feel relief, only to do the same thing again. You're not going to stop. You are going to continue playing the game until you beat it or it beats you. Why do we keep coming back? That depends on you. All of us have different experiences. Are you overcoming a challenge that feels good once you complete it? Are you trying to master your emotions and keep cool as you make it through Silent Hill? Overcoming this thrill is what keeps us returning time and time again. We get a sense of accomplishment that's not easy to emulate in the real world. Escapism is a common theme in a lot of my psych videos. It's what is at the heart of all of this. We escape into our fear, our survival, and come out stronger at the end of it with minimal scarring for the most part. And it seems like every year there's always a new horror game coming out. That's always scaring the pants off everybody. This last point, realistic graphics. You have Dead Space that looks, very realistic with its remake. But you also have 8-bit games. You have you have things that aren't necessarily realistic that can scare you. And that is what is amazing about video games. Designers of horror games have learned how to exploit this primal response of fear through manipulation. You heard it here first, folks. The biggest manipulators in your life are video game designers, which is crazy to say. Shout out Lifelike on Twitter and Bluesky. You should totally check out their work. Love you. Anyway, they are a game designer. Life_like LICH. They know what makes you tick. They know what can make you scared. And over time, it makes for a pretty damn good game. All right. Let's see here. Also, to conclude, fear can take on a whole new form when it's practiced in a safe environment. Recognize what makes you afraid and do your best to learn and grow from it. Some fears can lead to the best payoff. Skydiving, traveling the world, watching a horror series all the way through, or getting the true ending to Dead Space by playing on its hardest difficulty. Fear can bring you down and it can lift you up. With that said, my name is Moon, and thank you for joining me on Understanding fear. Yay, we did it, guys. That was everything I wanted to chat about today. I don't know, what are y'all thoughts? What are y'all thinking about? Because it's funny, because as a horror writer, as a horror film person, maker, watcher, all that stuff, horror works very differently in every form of medium. I think it is very unique that writing a book or reading a book can actually scare you. It can actually make you tense. Reading itself can make you feel every potential emotion. And that's different than watching a horror movie or a romance movie, where you get the visual with the movie. You see people, you see cartoons, whatever it might be, but you have a face. You have a face to a name. You get all of this real life stuff. Whereas with a book in horror, that's why cosmic horror is so effective in reading and writing, but it doesn't really come across in movies, TV, anything visual. With cosmic horror hasn't really been done all that well for the most part, because with cosmic horror, it's supposed to be these beings that are incomprehensible to the human mind. If you see something, if you learn something, like with Lovecraft horror, you're immediately supposed to go insane or go insane over time. Yet each time you see like Cthulhu in film, this being that should pretty much instantly burn out your eyes and break you mentally, just kind of looks cool. There's plenty of art on Cthulhu. He's a cool looking character. That's not quite fearful now, is it? Hex. I love horror movies, but they rarely scare me. Books are scarier to me, I think. Yeah, so that's my big thing. As someone who grew up watching horror movies, my first horror movie was... Let me pull it up, actually. My first horror movie was Bloody Valentine. Was this movie right here. Not by MGK. Nope. This, My Bloody Valentine. I should not have watched this movie at the age that I watched this movie. My Bloody Valentine, for example, I watched this when I was like 5, 6 years old. It kind of set up that experience of, okay, over now. Great. So, My Bloody Valentine movie. Watched it as a child. Horrible thing to do. Have your child watch. Anyway, was it a remake or the original? It was the original, because I didn't know they had a remake. And it really opened up my eyes to gore, to visual horror, to, oh, people can kill me. That's crazy. That's what the inside of a body looks like. Whereas with books, do y'all know, what is it? Creepy Stories to Tell in the Dark, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. That book series, the collection of stories. Let's see. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Yeah. Definitely doing this on an incognito tab next time. Scared to all hell what's going to pop up. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. That's the real fucking horror. This as a child, even before they added all of the drawings, was my first horror story that I read. And it was spooky because I had my imagination to go off of. And even without watching a lot of horror movies or anything like that, you get this fear through writing that I think, this is all just my personal thoughts, that really only happen because you are the one kind of scaring yourself. You're filling in the points here. And movies, you know, once you kind of see the behind the scenes, or once you kind of start seeing other movies, the magic's kind of ruined. Again, as someone who's like been behind cameras and stuff like that, it's you see like, oh, okay, I know what light they're using right now. I know what blood pump they're doing. I know how they're doing this, and this. And it sucks because you can't escape anymore. Sorry, I'm hearing banging in my apartment. You can't kind of escape anymore. Whereas with books, you can escape. You can escape in a book. There's no missing There's no plot. I guess there could be plot holes, but there's nothing that could take you out of the book like a movie. For example, Game of Thrones, everyone saw that Starbucks cup and instantly shot that down. It took you right out of it. You see Ed Sheeran in it, and you're like, that is Ed Sheeran. This is a TV show. With books, you don't get that. You are painting the world yourself. Let's see. Matt Fluffpaw. To horribly age me, I had the experience at 5 with Alien. Was scared out of my mind even behind the pillow I was hiding behind. I love Alien. Yeah, Alien is my favorite horror franchise. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like a horror book hits a little bit different than at home. Okay. Sometimes that's the best place for a movie. I'm not going to be as scared in movie theater. I'm surrounded by people. But if you're home alone, ooh, that gets scary. Yeah, now I'm just kind of rambling on now. But yeah, that's why I like cosmic horror and everything doesn't quite hit with the movies because it can really only exist in literature. With horror video games, that is where things make a big difference. All right. So you have the horror video games where you are the one in control. You are the person in danger and you're terrified, especially if you're a new gamer. You everything may as well be real. Every potential threat exists because you don't know what's real and what's not. Over time, as you start learning how to play games and you play more games, you realize, okay, the bad guy actually has a vision box. I'm good if I stay 15 feet away. He can't see me. May as well be blind. I have these objects I can throw. If I die, that's fine. I can just restart X, Y, and Z. Things are totally, kind of you can't escape as easy anymore. You can't escape as easy anymore because it's just kind of a video game. What changed this for me is the first time I did VR. Again, this is a first time experience. The first time I stepped into VR was crazy. I just sat on the floor and just looked at fish for 2 hours when I got it. As Matt says, agency makes a big difference. So if you're playing on a console, PC, whatever it might be, you have this distance between you and the TV. With VR, you don't really have that distance. It is literally in your face rather than just being in your character's face. It just sucks because VR needs a few more years to really, really cook before it can outclass consoles, I think. But again, personal opinion. Yeah, with movies, with books, with video games, even now, Stranger Things is finally ending. And it started off as this big scary thing where you don't know what is what, you don't know who is who, you don't know what the danger is. Now we're at the end of it, and it's pretty action-packed. Even if you don't really care about Stranger Things, it gets to the point of like, okay, I know what the danger is, I know what's possible, I know what the bad guys are. One of the big bad guys, the Demogorgon, the alien spooky-looking thing, at the start of the series, terrifying because it was a real movie monster. Now you get to season 5, you've seen many of them get killed. Your people can take it out with a shovel at this point. It loses its power because the curtain has been revealed. Yeah. I don't want to go too big into Stranger Things, but Outlast I put as a big example for a lot of these is because it's first person. It is a man holding a camera. It is someone who can't fight. He can only run away. He can't even trust himself a lot of the time because he's going crazy through being in this asylum, seeing these horrible, atrocious things happening. And there's also a little bit of a ghost action in there. So you have this unreliable narrator. Being an unreliable narrator is crazy. I'm just going to cycle through these little slides a bit. Being an unreliable narrator is crazy because, again, you don't know what's true and what's not true. Yeah, having an unreliable narrator, having agency, all that is great. I don't know. I can kind of keep talking about horror all day, but Amnesia and Outlast are still terrifying to me. Exactly. Yeah. Crazy game because they formulated this experience where, again, you can't really do anything other than just run away. And same goes for Outlast. They're both very similar in the way that they play, where you don't have agency, you're just kind of being acted upon. Yeah, I don't know. Outlast has been a big thing that has kind of affected everybody with the gaming industry. Of, okay, the first one was great. Second one was kind of cool. The Whistleblower DLC was amazing. I just can't get enough of it. What was I saying? Amnesia and Outlast. It's still terrifying. Do you guys have any other games that you're terrified of? Because, again, mine was Alien Isolation. And I think once you have a horror game that is like third person, it doesn't quite resonate as much because, again, you don't have that. There's a disconnect between you and what's happening in front of you. Dead Space is still good, even bits of 3. Dead Space 2 was friggin' spooky, but recently, Dead Space, thank you so much for having me contradict myself. Dead Space is a third-person game that is one of, my scariest games out there. And I don't think it would be the same if it was first person. I think it would still be just as scary, but with third person, it allows for more of a gore experience, all right? By having this third person perspective, you're able to see you're able to see the person you're able to see the person, I know his name, Isaac Clarke, get dismembered. The gore is kind of a part of the game, and it wouldn't be as scary without the gore in a way. Dead Space, you have the gore. Gore is not essential for horror, okay? But what is essential for horror is that what we were talking about earlier is this kind of fear response of you don't know it's safe, danger is lurking around every corner. And with Dead Space, you have that reaction of they could be in the vents at any point, they can be anywhere, and you're never fully aware. Your safe spot, usually the elevators, suddenly that's not safe anymore. I remember the first time I was playing through it, and I went through an elevator. Suddenly, okay, I'm safe. I'm in this elevator. All is fine. My security blanket is good. It's okay. All is good. All is safe. And then, boom, you had not a xenomorph, a necromorph break that safety. They got into your safe bubble, the elevator, and now you don't know what's safe anymore. You don't know. There is no place safe because they can now get you everywhere, even where you thought it was safe. Dead Space 1 and 2, very horrific, very horror. It's dark. The light system is great. And then you have Resident Evil, for example. You have the first few that, even with the remakes, whatever your preference is, it had this fear to it that was kind of unprecedented at the time. Zombies, you're vulnerable. You could die. Once you put something down in a video game, usually it stays down. Yet in this series, they can get right back up. You never know if they're actually dead or not. There can be something right in front of your eyes and you think, oh, I already got that. That's fine. And then it can come and get you, which is absolutely terrifying. And then you get to something that people thought was going to be outrageous. The whole first person for Resident Evil. That's not the game. Just how is that going to translate? Well, if, the sales of Resident Evil, Biohazard, and Village did anything, and all the new ones, they're doing just fine. It's just this different fear experience where, again, when you have this third person, it opens up more, combat, and you can see your character, and you're building this character's story. But with this first person, you have this, do you never see the main character's face in Biohazard. It's always obscured. You can kind of be placed into this character's body, this shell, and the things that are being acted upon them are now being acted upon you. Even if you're not a man playing Resident Evil and you're playing this male character who I can't remember his name, it's still, there's a little bit more of that disconnect, even if you're masculine playing a feminine character, whatever it might be. But ultimately, you're both here. That's not as important because you're both trying to survive, and their survival depends on your survival. I'm trying to think of any other little horror examples. This wasn't going to be a long stream today. I mainly just wanted to sit here with y'all and talk about fear, talk about horror. You have the horror of marble hornets. You have this, demon, whatever it might be. You have these humans that are actually bad guys. No one is safe, and you can kind of get the pattern down to know when to expect to be tense. All right. And then you have a psychological thriller like Donnie Darko, or I guess Shutter Island counts, where there's not much blatant horror, but you have this psychological, well, I guess that's why it's called psychological thriller. But even like psychological horror, for example, it's more about breaking the character down, their mentality, their thoughts, their wants, wishes, desires. The best thing you could do is give the character what they want and twist it. It sucks to be a viewer, reader, whatever it might be, and to have your character be pretty much tortured throughout the whole movie. Well, that is what makes the horror. That is what draws you in, because you're seeing this character that you're attached to, that you love, and everything goes wrong at every potential turn. That's what a good story is. Nothing should ever be really going right for your character until the very end. And even then, sometimes a bad end is the best end. I love As Above, So Below. All right. This is, let me pull up one more little thumbnail for you. Cool. As Above, So Below. This, again, takes kind of the the first person perspective of you're watching this found footage, and you have all these different characters that are being affected by this area. Totally love how Satan is portrayed in this movie as well. But you have these characters trying to find this or solve this riddle, and then or try to solve where they are even, and then suddenly they're displaced. I kind of hate this movie. Honestly, I kind of get it. This is one of my favorite horror movies or scary movies, just because I love how it turns hell on its side, or turns hell upside down, really. But even then, it's not the venue that makes it scary. The setting, they're in the Paris catacombs, so bones are everywhere. It's cramped. There are tunnels. If you're claustrophobic, you are not in for a good time. But then you start getting attached to the main characters, where if you don't care about the characters whatsoever, it's not going to be effective. Like Heck says, it's mostly because it is found footage, but it doesn't want to be. Correct. It's you're following this plot of everyone's recording stuff, but it could have just as easily been a regular horror movie without there being the found footage aspect. But because you have this camera around, it doesn't quite do, for example, what Marble Hornets does, where you get attached to the people that are making the film or holding this camera to share their point of view and document their story. With As Above, So Below, it's almost kind of like the camera itself is trying to be a character, but it's not quite succeeding. Hate is a strong word. I was just disappointed because I love found footage. No, I can understand where you're coming from. Again, okay, I'm done. I'm done looking at that. But I don't know. I think this is a good spot to end for the night. I'm kind of losing steam. I lost all my my little bullet points, other stuff I was going to talk about tonight. But I've been having a great time. Have a good night, y'all.